Welcome to Senior Relationship After 60. Did you know that in 2025, more than 1 in 4 people signing up for dating sites are over 60? That's not a typo. Seniors are quietly reshaping what love, companionship, and intimacy look like in the modern age. But behind that number lies a question that no statistic can answer. What does romance really feel like when you've already lived a lifetime of it? Maybe it's not about grand gestures anymore. Maybe it's about the calmness of knowing someone who doesn't need to impress you. Someone who just gets you. It's when holding hands feels like a victory over loneliness. And a shared laugh over morning coffee means more than flowers ever could. For many, this season of love is less about finding someone new, and more about rediscovering yourself, the part of you that still wants to feel seen, touched, and loved deeply. Today's seniors are flipping the script. They're joining dating apps, traveling with companionship clubs, and proving that love doesn't retire. It reinvents itself. Yet, no one really talks about the emotional tightrope that comes with it. The guilt of moving on, the awkwardness of first dates after decades, or the fear of vulnerability after loss. Because even though the world is changing, many still whisper about intimacy at this age, as if desire fades like memory. But here's the truth, it doesn't. Just changes form. And when you learn to see it differently, connection after 60 can be more passionate, peaceful, and powerful than ever before. Stay tuned, because in tip number 4, we'll uncover the one secret most videos never touch, the kind that transformed Robert's love life from hesitant to hopeful. Before we go on, if this already hits close to home, don't just hit that like button now. It's YouTube's way of lifting senior voices higher, and every tap helps others over 60 discover that their story isn't over. It's just beginning. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe, because this isn't just a video. It's a movement. Margot Ellis had never planned to fall in love again. At 68, she had made peace with quiet mornings and evenings filled with her favorite shows and the gentle hum of her Florida ceiling fan. A retired nurse and widow of 5 years, Margot had built a small but comforting routine, tending to her garden, visiting her daughter on weekends, and volunteering at the local clinic twice a month. It wasn't loneliness she feared. It was the possibility of opening her heart only to lose again. But one evening something changed. After dinner, her friend Doris, ever the daring one, convinced her to try something Margot swore she'd never do: signing up for a senior dating site. "Just to browse," Doris said. "You're not committing to anything." With a half laugh and a skeptical eye roll, Margot filled in her profile. A brief note about loving nature, coffee, and conversations that don't rush. Her fingers hovered over the submit button longer than she expected. When she finally clicked it, she felt an odd mix of guilt and excitement, like she had broken an invisible rule about how widows were supposed to live. The next morning, her inbox had 3 messages. One was a simple, kind note from a man named George, a retired high school teacher from Sarasota. He wrote, "You look like someone who still believes in small joys." Margot read it twice. Her heart raced, but not from infatuation, from uncertainty. Was she ready to feel again? To be seen again? Or worse, to be disappointed? She closed her laptop and stared out the window, watching sunlight hit her garden. For the first time in years, she wondered not about what she'd lost, but what might still be waiting for her. This moment, small to anyone else, marked the beginning of something big. Because behind every senior rediscovering love is a quiet battle between memory and hope. Margot's hesitation wasn't just about romance. It was about identity. Who was she now, without her late husband, without the years of caregiving, without the routine that had defined her? Many seniors face that same invisible question. Can I still belong in someone's story? And here's where Margot's courage becomes a mirror for so many others. She didn't leap into dating, she tiptoed. She took time to explore her feelings, to rediscover what companionship could mean. Through that first conversation, she realized something simple yet profound. Connection doesn't have an age limit, it just asks for honesty. So let's make this real for you watching right now. Have you or someone you know ever faced that same tug of war between fear and curiosity when it comes to love again? Maybe it's the fear of being judged, or the hope of being seen. Share one word in the comments that captures how you felt the first time you even thought about dating again. Because like Margot, that single step could be the start of your next beautiful chapter. Why this era feels different. Something remarkable is happening quietly across America. Seniors are rewriting the rules of love. What used to be whispered about in private is now unfolding openly on phone screens, in coffee shops, and through glowing tablets in cozy living rooms. Since the pandemic, more people over 60 have turned to online spaces for connection than ever before. Dating platforms like Silver Singles, Our Time, and Stitch aren't just matching couples. They're igniting conversations about companionship, emotional intimacy, and rediscovery. Love, once thought to belong only to the young, is being reclaimed by those who finally have time to live it fully. And it's not just dating apps. Across the country, social clubs and senior meetups are thriving. Walking groups, travel circles, community dance nights, even senior speed dating events. Technology has become the new porch swing, a gathering place where people find laughter, flirtation, and even soulmates. Seniors today are texting, video chatting, and forming digital bonds that turn into real connections. Longevity and better healthcare have gifted many another 3 decades of vitality, and with that comes a question. Why shouldn't love be part of that extra time? But this new era of romance doesn't come without its challenges. Many over 60 are carrying invisible burdens. Grief from losing a partner, health issues that affect confidence, or years spent as caregivers where their own desires were pushed aside. Some worry about their family's opinions. Adult children who might frown upon mom or dad dating again. Others face the generational taboo that still lingers, the outdated idea that sex and intimacy belong only to the young. Margot felt that weight herself. When her daughter found out she was talking to someone new, her response was hesitant. "Mom, are you sure?" Those words echoed louder than intended. Margot smiled, but inside she felt a ripple of guilt, as if wanting affection made her disloyal to her late husband. That's the emotional tightrope many seniors walk, between honoring the past and embracing the possibility of something new. And yet, beneath that guilt is something powerful: curiosity. Because once the world quiets down and responsibilities ease, there's space for reflection. Seniors today are asking deeper questions. What does connection mean to me now? What kind of love do I deserve at this stage? These are not the questions of youth, but of wisdom. Love after 60 feels different because it's earned, not rushed. It's deliberate, patient, built on shared histories and honest communication. This generation has weathered loss, illness, financial shifts, and global change. And through it all, they've learned that vulnerability is not weakness. It's courage. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Despite all these shifts, the technology, the health breakthroughs, the new openness, many seniors are still missing one crucial piece that changes everything about late-life relationships. It's not what most people think. And it's coming right up. Section 1. Redefining love and companionship after 60. Love after 60 doesn't move fast. It breathes. It's not about fireworks or the dizzying rush of first dates. It's about exhaling into comfort, about two people finding peace in the steady rhythm of everyday life. In this stage, love often feels less like chasing butterflies and more like coming home. It's about waking up and knowing someone's there, not to complete you but to witness you. For many seniors, love now means emotional closeness over physical display. It's the long phone calls that stretch into laughter, the late-night talks about childhood memories, the warmth of someone who listens, really listens, without trying to fix you. It's the small moments that carry the biggest meaning. A shared cup of tea, a quiet evening spent watching the news together, someone remembering how you take your coffee. It's gentle predictability, the kind that says, "You can relax now. You're safe here." Yet no one really prepares you for this kind of companionship. Society tends to frame senior love as either comical or impossible, when in truth it's neither. It's steady, deeply emotional, and often far more fulfilling than the chaotic romances of youth. Seniors don't want to chase excitement. They crave connection. They want a partner who'll hold their hand in the waiting room, who'll share the grocery list, who'll be there for the doctor's calls and still make them laugh afterward. Love now is less about grand gestures and more about showing up, quietly, consistently, and wholeheartedly. For Margot and her new friend George, this redefinition of love began without labels. Their dates weren't candlelit dinners or long walks on the beach. They were trips to the pharmacy, shared errands, and long talks on George's porch about everything from their favorite movies to their fears about aging. They didn't rush to impress each other. They simply found comfort in presence. One afternoon, while driving to a routine doctor's appointment, George turned to her and said, "You know, this feels like the most real kind of romance, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything." Margot smiled, realizing that he was right. The world might not see their outings as dates, but she did. Because love at this age isn't about where you go. It's about who you're with when you get there. This stage of life brings a special kind of wisdom. Love doesn't have to be loud to be deep. It can be simple, it can be quiet, and it can be profoundly healing. When companionship replaces pressure, when laughter replaces expectation, that's when love becomes sustainable. So what about you? What did you imagine love would be after 60? And what has surprised you most about what it actually is? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the very encouragement someone else needs to believe in love again. Section 2. Intimacy and affection beyond physicality. When most people hear the word intimacy, their minds jump straight to sex. But for many seniors, intimacy becomes something far richer, a language of closeness that doesn't rely on youth, speed, or physical perfection. It's emotional, intellectual, even spiritual. It's about knowing someone's soul as much as their skin. After 60, intimacy shifts from performance to presence, from trying to impress to simply being real with another person. Emotional intimacy might be the strongest of all. It's that sense of safety you feel when you can share your fears, your regrets, or your memories without being judged. It's when someone looks at you and doesn't see your wrinkles or your age. They see your story. Intellectual intimacy grows in those deep conversations over morning coffee or a long car ride, where two people exchange not just opinions but insights. And spiritual intimacy, the quiet, unseen bond, is found in shared faith, gratitude, or simply sitting together in silence, content without needing words. Physical intimacy, too, takes on new meaning. It doesn't always require passion. Sometimes it's about comfort. Holding hands while watching TV, slow dancing in the living room to old songs, or a simple back rub after a long day. These small gestures rebuild a bridge that time or loss might have worn thin. Even sleeping close, feeling the warmth of another person's breath, can do something powerful. It reminds you that you're not alone. Margot discovered this truth one evening with George. They had spent the day sorting old photos, laughing at the hairstyles of the 1970s, and trading stories from their working years. As the evening grew quiet, they sat side by side on the couch. George gently reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. The stillness between them was enough. In that silence, Margot realized how long it had been since she'd simply felt close to someone, not physically but emotionally. The weight that had sat on her chest for years, that ache of loneliness, began to lift. That night she told a friend, "I forgot how healing it feels just to be touched, not passionately but kindly." And that's the beauty of late-life intimacy. It heals, it grounds, it reminds you that love can still live in a gentle touch or a shared laugh. You don't need to chase it. You simply allow it to happen. If you're listening to this right now, maybe it's time to expand what intimacy means to you. Try something small. Cook a meal together, dance to your favorite old record, or hold someone's hand without letting go too soon. These quiet connections often say what words cannot. When was the last time you felt truly close to someone? What made that moment special? Share it in the comments. Your story might remind someone that intimacy doesn't end with age. It simply evolves. Section 3. Physical desire, health and realities after 60. Here's the truth most people don't talk about. Physical desire doesn't disappear after 60. It simply changes shape. For many older adults, the body's rhythm slows, but the longing for closeness, touch, and pleasure remains as strong as ever. The key is learning to understand and honor the body you have now, not the one you had decades ago. As we age, hormones shift. Estrogen levels drop for women, testosterone declines for men, and with that, natural lubrication, stamina, and sensitivity may decrease. Medications for blood pressure, diabetes, depression, or arthritis can also affect libido or performance. Mobility and joint pain may make certain positions or activities uncomfortable. But here's the good news. These changes don't end intimacy. They invite a new kind of creativity. Doctors today, especially in 2025, are finally talking more openly about senior sexual health. Geriatric specialists, pelvic therapists, and relationship counselors are encouraging conversations that used to be taboo. There are adaptive tools now. Gentle lubricants designed for mature skin, cushions that reduce joint pressure, and techniques that focus more on pleasure through touch, breathing, and communication rather than performance. Margot had to face this head-on. At 68, she found herself both curious and cautious. She'd been taking medication for her joints, and it left her feeling tired and sometimes disconnected from her body. When she and George began getting closer, she hesitated, not because she didn't want intimacy, but because she feared pain and embarrassment. One day, she finally brought it up with her doctor. To her surprise, the conversation wasn't awkward at all. Her doctor suggested small adjustments, using lubricants, taking time for extended foreplay, finding comfortable positions, and most importantly, talking openly with her partner about her limits and desires. That simple conversation changed everything. Instead of pressure, Margot and George approached intimacy as teamwork. They laughed through the learning curve, found new ways to connect, and discovered that sometimes the slowest moments were the most passionate. There's also an emotional layer many overlook: the impact of self-image. After 60, scars, wrinkles, and sagging skin tell the story of life lived fully, but many people feel self-conscious. The secret is reframing those marks as proof of resilience. When two people approach each other with understanding and patience, insecurity fades, replaced by gratitude. So, if you're listening now, here's your reminder. There's no right way to express physical affection after 60. There's only your way, one that respects your comfort, your health, and your rhythm. And if you're struggling, talk to your doctor or a therapist who understands senior intimacy. You'd be amazed how many tools, treatments, and supports are now available for people just like you. And the next section reveals a surprising insight that most guides never cover, especially for seniors. It's the piece that often separates lasting late-life love from short-lived connection. And it might just change the way you see your relationships forever. Section 4. Communication, consent, and emotional safety. If there's one truth about relationships after 60 that no one can afford to ignore, it's this. Communication isn't optional anymore, it's everything. In younger years, couples often relied on chemistry, impulse, or assumption. But now, every connection comes with a lifetime of memories, habits, losses, and lessons. That's not baggage, that's wisdom. Yet it also means that love after 60 requires more listening, more honesty, and more courage than ever before. For many seniors, opening up about needs or fears can feel uncomfortable. Some grew up in generations where intimacy was private, even unspoken. Yet avoiding these talks often leads to loneliness within a relationship, a silence that feels heavier than being alone. Talking about boundaries, desires, and limitations isn't awkward. It's an act of care. This becomes even more important when dealing with topics like mismatched libidos, physical limitations, or emotional scars. One partner may want closeness more often, while another may feel anxious or physically restricted. Some may still grieve a late spouse and feel guilt about moving forward. Others may fear how adult children or friends will judge their new relationships. These aren't small things. They're real emotional hurdles that can either divide or deepen a bond, depending on how they're handled. That's why communication after 60 has to be both gentle and direct. It's not just about saying what you want, it's about creating a safe space for the other person to do the same. One powerful approach that's gaining attention among senior therapists in 2025 is something called emotional check-in rituals. These are short, scheduled moments where couples intentionally pause to ask each other simple but deep questions. How are you feeling about us? What's been on your mind this week? Is there something I can do better? Margot and George started their own version, a weekly safety circle walk. Every Sunday evening, they stroll through a nearby park, holding hands away from distractions. That's their sacred time to talk openly, not to fix things but to understand. Some weeks they laugh about small miscommunications. Other weeks they share vulnerabilities. Margot might talk about missing her late husband, or George about his fear of aging alone. These quiet talks built a trust stronger than any grand gesture ever could. For seniors, this kind of emotional safety is revolutionary. It transforms relationships from something reactive into something responsive. It reminds both partners that love is not just what you feel, it's what you nurture. If you've ever avoided a hard conversation, you're not alone. Maybe you feared rejection or didn't want to burden someone. But here's the thing. When you finally speak your truth, it doesn't push people away. It invites them closer. So take a moment and reflect. Have you ever avoided a difficult conversation? What held you back? And what changed when you finally had it? Share your experience below. You never know who your honesty might inspire. Section 5. Reinvention, Growth and Legacy Intimacy. For many people over 60, intimacy begins to mean something far greater than what happens between two people behind closed doors. It becomes about connection as legacy, how you love, support, and show up for others in the final, most reflective chapters of life. This stage of love isn't about chasing passion. It's about passing it on. It's about leaving behind a story of tenderness, courage, and growth that others, children, friends, or even strangers, can learn from. Margot once believed her romantic life had ended with widowhood. But over time, she discovered something powerful. Intimacy in your 60s, 70s, and beyond isn't about returning to who you were. It's about reinventing who you can still become. It's learning that you can build new memories, rewrite your emotional story, and still feel vibrant in a world that often overlooks people your age. Today, more seniors than ever are exploring new ways to connect. Some are joining intentional senior communities, places where friendship, caregiving, and romance intertwine naturally. These aren't nursing homes. They're social ecosystems where love and laughter are encouraged, not hidden. Others are turning to apps designed specifically for people over 60. Platforms that focus on meaningful companionship rather than fleeting flings. They allow seniors to meet others who understand that intimacy now is less about fireworks and more about finding someone to laugh, talk, and grow with. There's also a quiet trend emerging, one that many don't talk about openly yet. Seniors exploring unconventional relationship styles. Long-distance love, deep platonic companionships, even forms of consensual non-monogamy rooted in emotional honesty, not secrecy. These are not acts of rebellion. They're expressions of self-discovery. After all, by this age, you've earned the right to define love on your own terms. And then there's intergenerational intimacy, not necessarily romantic, but deeply human. Many seniors are mentoring younger adults, forming friendships that bridge decades. It's intimacy through wisdom, laughter, and shared experience. In a world obsessed with youth, this cross-generational warmth is quietly reshaping what connection looks like in 2025. Margot embraced that idea wholeheartedly. She started a small local meetup in Florida called Golden Years Connection. At first, it was just 4 people at a coffee shop: widows, divorcees, and lifelong singles, all looking for community. But soon, it grew into a thriving network where older adults shared stories, held workshops on communication and touch, and even hosted memory dinners, where everyone brought a photo that represented love in their life. Margot wasn't just dating again. She was helping redefine what intimacy meant for an entire generation. That's the beauty of this stage of life. Reinvention isn't about escaping aging. It's about embracing it as a gateway to deeper, truer connection. When you stop asking, "Am I too old for this?" and start asking, "What do I still want to create?" everything changes. And by the end of Margot's story, you'll see that she didn't just find love, she found purpose. Because sometimes the greatest intimacy isn't in being desired, it's in being truly known. And that, as you'll soon discover, is where her transformation begins. When Margot Ellis first appeared in this story, she was a 68-year-old widow living quietly in Florida. Her days filled with habit, her nights heavy with silence. She had spent years convincing herself that intimacy, passion, and even companionship were parts of life that had already passed her by. The idea of starting over felt foreign, almost foolish. But what she didn't realize was that love after 60 isn't a continuation of the past. It's a whole new chapter waiting to be written. Her transformation didn't happen overnight. It began with hesitation, that small, fluttering moment when she downloaded a senior dating app and stared at the blinking cursor on her profile page. Behind that simple act was a storm of emotion. Guilt, fear, curiosity, hope. Then came George. Kind, patient, a widower himself. Their connection wasn't instant fireworks. It was a slow, steady spark, the kind that warms rather than burns. Together, Margot and George learned to speak a new language of love. They didn't chase the thrill of youth. They built the comfort of understanding. They talked about boundaries, about grief, about what affection meant to them now. They learned to laugh through awkward moments, to hold hands without needing promises, to embrace honesty as their greatest form of intimacy. For Margot, that openness became liberation, not from loneliness, but from the fear of judgment. Her journey unfolded in layers. First came rediscovery, realizing her body still longed for tenderness, her heart still capable of joy. Then came acceptance, learning that love doesn't have to be perfect, only sincere. And finally, empowerment, when she turned her personal healing into a collective one by creating Golden Years Connection, a space where other seniors could explore companionship, share wisdom, and reclaim their emotional lives. Margot's story isn't just about finding romance. It's about finding herself again. She no longer measures her worth by who she lost, but by how deeply she's learned to connect. Her laughter comes easier now. Her sleep is gentler. Her mornings start with possibility, not emptiness. She's not chasing youth, she's embracing presence. And that's the heart of it all. Love over 60 isn't about turning back time. It's about redeeming it. It's about realizing that intimacy isn't a privilege of the young. It's the reward of the brave. It's about the quiet power of showing up as you are, scars and all, and saying, "I'm still here. I still have love to give." Margot's transformation reminds us that it's never too late to rediscover tenderness, to speak your truth, or to reach for another hand in the dark. Because real connection, the kind that soothes the soul and anchors the heart, has nothing to do with age and everything to do with courage. Margot now sleeps easier, laughs more, and isn't afraid of tomorrow. Not because she's young again, but because she's finally at peace. She didn't just find love, she found belonging. And in that belonging, she found herself. If you've made it this far, take a deep breath, because what you've just witnessed isn't just Margot's story. It's the story of millions of people who are quietly rediscovering what it means to love, connect, and be seen again after 60. It's proof that intimacy doesn't expire with age. It evolves, deepens, and sometimes even becomes more meaningful than ever before. If you believe it's not too late to love, grow, and feel close again, then your story matters, and it's time to start writing it. Because somewhere out there, another person over 60 is watching this right now, wondering if it's too late for them. Your courage to comment, to share, to simply say, "Me too," might be the moment that gives them hope. You see, what makes this community powerful isn't just the stories we tell. It's the voices behind them. Every like, every share, every comment helps lift senior stories higher in YouTube system, so more people like you can find encouragement and belonging. So before you go, take a second to hit that like button, not just as support for this channel, but as a message to the world that senior love, intimacy, and connection deserve to be celebrated, not hidden. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Senior Relationships After 60. This isn't just another channel, it's a movement. A growing space for real conversations, expert insights, and heartfelt stories about what it truly means to love at this stage of life. We're here to talk about everything the rest of the world forgets: emotional healing, late life romance, companionship, and rediscovering confidence. Don't forget to click the bell icon too, because the next video might be the one that speaks directly to where you are right now. Maybe it's a story about someone rebuilding love after loss, or finding affection despite health challenges, or learning to feel desirable again after decades of silence. You don't want to miss it. Now, let's make this part personal. Tell us in the comments. Backhand index pointing right, what surprised you most about intimacy after 60? Backhand index pointing right, what part of Margot's journey resonated with you? Backhand index pointing right, or simply drop a word that describes how this video made you feel. Your words could be the lifeline for someone who's been silent too long. And if you know someone, a friend, a widower, a parent, who might need a little encouragement right now, share this video with them. You never know whose heart you might open by doing something so small. Because love after 60 isn't just about romance. It's about rediscovering life. So if you believe in that, if you're ready to grow, heal, and connect again, then you're already part of this story. And we're honored to have you here.